Today, the Commission has decided to fine Google €4.34 billion for breaching EU antitrust rules. Google has engaged in illegal practices to cement its dominant market position in Internet search. It must put an effective end to this conduct within 90 days or face penalty payments. Google's search engine is its flagship product. You fine? Okay. Every year, Google generates more than $95 billion from adverts, such as those shown and clicked on by users of Google Search. And much of this revenue is thanks to the rise of smart mobile devices, namely smartphones and tablets. Today, mobile internet makes more than half of global internet traffic. It has changed the lives for millions of Europeans. No matter if we're waiting for the metro or the bus, if we're in a meeting room, if we're dining with friends, more and more our hands reach for our smartphones and tablets to find the information that we're looking for. Our case is about 3 types of restrictions that Google has imposed on mobile device manufacturers and network operators to ensure that traffic goes to Google Search. First, Google has required manufacturers to pre-install the Google Search and browser apps on devices running on the Android mobile operating system. Manufacturers had to do this if they wanted to be able to sell devices with the Google App Store. Second, Google paid manufacturers and network operators to make sure that only the Google Search app was pre-installed on such devices. Third, Google has obstructed the development of competing mobile operating systems. These could have provided a platform for rival search engines to gain traffic. In this way, Google has used Android as a vehicle to cement its dominance as a search engine. These practices, they have denied rivals a chance to innovate and to compete on the merits. They have denied European consumers the benefit of effective competition in the very important mobile sphere. And this is illegal under EU antitrust rules. There is a saying that you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Well, evidence shows that when it comes to search apps and mobile browsers, the vast majority of users simply take what comes with their device and do not download competing apps. In fact, these apps are not even for free, since users pay with their data. Or, to slightly paraphrase what also economist Milton Friedman has said, there ain't no such thing as a free search. So why are these practices illegal under EU rules? In Europe, well, of course, we congratulate all companies for success, the success that they achieve through innovation, developing products that consumers value. And that is why, as such, dominance is not a problem under EU antitrust rules. But with market dominance comes a responsibility. And that's because when one company dominates the marketplace, obviously competition is weakened. So, EU antitrust rules put a special responsibility on dominant companies. They must not deny other companies the chance to compete against them on the merits. Of course, because that would be to the detriment of further innovation and therefore harm European consumers. Through its control over Android, Google is dominant in the market for mobile operating systems which are available to license to other manufacturers. And Google has been dominant in this market since 2011. This means that Google must comply with EU antitrust rules for dominant companies. And the decision today concludes that the restrictions Google imposed on manufacturers and network operators using Android have breached these rules since 2011. The fine of 4.34 billion euros reflects the seriousness and the sustained nature of Google's violation of EU antitrust rules. The decision requires Google to bring its illegal conduct to an end within 90 days in an effective manner. At a minimum, our decision requires Google to stop and not to re-engage in the three types of restrictions that I have described. In other words, our decision stops Google from controlling which search and browser apps manufacturers can pre-install on Android devices or which Android operating system they can adopt. But it is Google's sole responsibility to make sure that it changes its conduct in a way that brings the infringement to an effective end.
Thank you, Ricardo. Jorge Valero, Euractiv. Two quick questions. The first one, even if the Trump administration is not as close to Obama administration to Silicon Valley, are you afraid that this decision could affect the meeting next week between President Juncker and President Trump? And a second question, you have imposed 2 record fines on a company which motto was don't be evil. So my question is whether you think that Google should apologize to companies, SMEs, and consumers.
Well, as I know my US colleagues, they want fair competition just as well as we do. And this was also has been the discussion around the first Google case, that there is a respect that we do our job. Because we're here, we have this very simple mission to make sure that companies play by the rule book to serve consumers, for the market to serve consumers. And this is also my impression that this is what they want in the US. On the second question, well, what we want is for Google to change its behavior. This is an illegal behavior. We want this to stop in an effective manner. And this is what we are asking, because this is not a moral endeavor. This is a market. There are rules in this market. And just as well as anyone else, Google should play by these rules.
Irini Kostaki from New Europe. The fine is very large, and somebody could say that this gives it a political dimension. Do you fear that there might be backlash on the European companies operating in the US by the administration?
Well, I also find that it's a large sum of money. But if you look at sort of the percentage of turnover as we do, when we look at the level of fine, it is in line with what we usually find. So we are not in that respect out of the ordinary. We're in the same sort of level as we usually are. Maybe it's slightly sort of on the high side, but it's definitely not sort of spectacular in that effect.
Good afternoon, Mark Bebekorn, Volkskrant. Because you stressed the fact that this is the largest fine ever given in an antitrust case. Do you consider then also this as the biggest abuse of a dominant market position?
Well, I also love all my children the same way. I don't think it's fair to ask me to choose. Because the fine reflects the length and the seriousness and the size of the business. But sometimes you have antitrust offenses, illegal behavior that very specifically harms some people very, very much. So I don't think it's fair to ask me to choose.